Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, greetings and salutations. My name is Christopher Black and I am a solutions architect with CircleCI. And joining me today is Pradnesh Patil, another technologist at Prisma Cloud. And we're going to be running through a webinar on how to automate security in your deployment pipelines. Quick overview of the agenda for today. All right, we're going to keep the agenda light. We're going to keep it straightforward. We're going to keep it very conversational. For those of you watching, if you have any questions at all, we have a dedicated 10-15 minutes at the end for Q&A. We're going to do a couple of brief introductions, myself, Pradnesh, our role, how we found ourselves in this industry. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about CircleCI. I love CircleCI. I've been with the company for a long time. Talk a little bit about the company's history, our mission statement, which is a mission statement that very much resonates with me as a technology professional. Brief history lesson on kind of the history, the genesis of CI/CD, if you will. And then I'm going to spend a couple of moments talking about a really compelling feature called Orbs. Then I'm going to pass the mic, if you will, to Pradnesh, who's going to do a deep dive on Prisma Cloud. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the Prisma Cloud Orb. And for those of you, I guess, spoiler alert, CircleCI is not a plugin-based architecture, but we're able to integrate with awesome third-party tools and technologies in the form of Orbs. And so through Orbs, CircleCI is able to integrate with technologies like Prisma Cloud and able to incorporate these technologies into their CI/CD pipelines. And then, as I said, we've got a dedicated 10-15 minutes for Q&A at the end. I guess before I dive into CircleCI, Pradnesh, would love to hear from you a little bit about your role, your background, how you found yourself at Prisma Cloud.
Sure, Chris. So hi, everyone. My name is Pradnesh Patil. I am a product manager on Prisma Cloud team. I have been with Palo Alto Networks now more than a year and a half. Like, I live and breathe security, as you can imagine, working at Palo Alto Networks. I started my career many years back as an engineer at Symantec when it was called Symantec. Did hardcore engineering for 5+ years and then started switching the career tracks. Did a bit of marketing, consulting. And last few years, I have been doing product management, cloud containers, configuration management, all those areas are dear to me. I worked for big companies like VMware, in Cisco, Symantec I mentioned, and I have worked for startups as well. So that's pretty much about me. Right now at Palo Alto Networks, I'm very much focused on shift left security, the marriage of DevOps and SecOps, so DevSecOps, and that's how my days are consumed.
Love it, love it. Thanks, Pradnesh. Like I said, my name is Christopher Black. I'm a solutions architect with CircleCI. I've been with CircleCI for about 5 years. Some say that's a lifetime in this industry, but I absolutely love the company. I love the space. I love the folks I work with. The mission statement, CircleCI's mission statement, very strongly resonates with me to help companies build better code quicker, more reliably. My background from a technology standpoint, though, is predominantly DevOps and infrastructure kind of engineering. Definitely not my first rodeo when it comes to security. I transitioned to the dark side, if you will, into a customer-facing engineering role about 2.5 years ago. I love a lot of the problem set associated with DevOps, continuous integration, deployments, infrastructure, and I love working with teams of all shapes and sizes and really helping them achieve their goals when it comes to software delivery. So with that, let's talk about CircleCI. So I hope most of you watching this are familiar with CircleCI. Hopefully you're happy CircleCI users, but making no assumptions, I'm going to assume that this is your first time hearing about CircleCI. So what the heck is CircleCI and why should I care? So who we are? Well, spoiler alert, you could hear it in the name. We're a continuous integration platform, and you can do continuous deployment and continuous delivery on our platform as well. But our core mission statement is continuous integration. And we've been around for quite some time. In fact, the company was launched in 2011. So going on 10 years. We're still very much a startup. We're still very much in startup mode. We're lean, we're nimble. We're constantly hiring. We're constantly adding new features to our platform, but we're still very much a startup. I was employee 32, so you just drop a zero there. We have 320 employees now, and to be with such an amazing company through such explosive growth, a platform re-architecture in 2017 has been really, really, really exciting as a technology professional. We've raised a considerable sum of money up until this point, and we take that money, we're constantly hiring engineers, and we're constantly investing in the platform, ultimately to benefit the end user and to better serve our user base. So our mission really is to empower developers, to empower teams, all shapes and sizes, to build better quality software quicker, more reliably. And I keep saying it, that's a mission statement that resonates with me, and I'll elaborate on why here in a couple of moments. I say this again, technology companies of all shapes and sizes. We have a number of, as you can see, really awesome, prominent logos down here on the right. These are some of the companies we do business with. But I really want to emphasize CircleCI is a platform applicable and beneficial to teams of all shapes and sizes, from two-dudes-and-a-pizza.com to obviously some of the world's leading technology companies. And so our core mission statement, we live and breathe continuous integration. We live and breathe continuous deployment. Our mission fundamentally is to make it as easy as possible to go from idea to delivery, effectively narrowing the distance between idea and implementation. And so in a perfect world, the world obviously is not perfect, but in a perfect world, the right technology in place, with the right tools in place, somebody like Pradnesh, a product manager, a visionary, anybody has an idea. How quickly and seamlessly can we bring that idea to life? How quickly and seamlessly can we bring that application into the hands of end users? And so that's where continuous integration comes in. That's where continuous deployment comes in. So I very much geek out on the history of computer science. I very much kind of geek out on some of the historical trends that we've witnessed in the past 5, 10, 15 years. Things are continuing to evolve like heck. But I love talking about the history of continuous integration kind of from an academic standpoint, because I find it very fascinating. So if you think back 10 years ago, which really isn't that long ago when you think about it, you think 10 years ago, most software applications, I'm generalizing here, but most software applications were still very much monolithic in terms of their architecture, the front end, the back end, stateful services, monolithic code bases, slow, painful release processes. If there was any kind of automated testing in place, it was superficial at best. If you think back software 10 years ago, QA was still a very, very prominent, very important function in any software engineering org. And most QA was still performed manually. In fact, I remember one of my first jobs in college as an intern was doing some manual QA. And then I had this crazy idea at some point. I said, well, how much of this could I potentially throw into a shell script and automate? But the point is that software was still very monolithic. It was brittle. It was fragile. It was very tough to deploy. It was very tough to maintain. And it was very hard to test. And so fast forward to today, fast forward the past 5, 10 years, there have been some incredible changes in the industry. And I don't want to sound like a Docker fanboy or any of that, but containerization, for example, has completely changed the way we build, test, and deploy software, let alone how we consume software. The proliferation of container orchestration technologies, Kubernetes, Docker Compose, Swarm, all of it, ECS, has also changed the way we build, test, and deploy software. You think about some other really interesting trends in the industry, what HashiCorp has done, for example, infrastructure as code, Terraform, tools like Consul, tools like Nomad, really, really, really compelling stuff. And then to say nothing of the fact within the past 5, 10 years, most software systems these days are being architected for a cloud native environment. We have the rise of AWS, GCP, Azure. We went 10 years ago from large monolithic code bases running on physical bare metal infrastructure to small service-oriented architectures running somewhere on the cloud. And so in order to keep pace with some of these changes, and in order to kind of mitigate some of this uncontrolled complexity, that's where strong engineering practices like continuous integration come in. And you can also kind of think about the organic rise of the DevOps movement in opposition to all of this. Historically, it was very much forward-thinking technology companies that were a big part of this change, right? Software companies first and foremost. But when you think about the great digital transformation, shifting left, as Pradnesh said at the onset of the call, keeping application security top of mind for everybody, all of this, every industry now is experiencing this change, this great digital transformation. Every industry, irrespective of vertical, irrespective of role, irrespective of where you are in the market, every company in the world today is a software company, whether they realize it or not. And hopefully they do realize it, because companies' ability to adapt, their technological agility, has a huge determining factor on their ability to succeed commercially. And so in sum, every industry is experiencing this change. Technology companies, healthcare companies, government, military, all across the board, every industry is experiencing this change. And so it's a really exciting time to be a technology professional. And I really like this diagram right here. This is just a nice visual representation of how the complexity of software has evolved due to the speed of delivery. So back to what I was saying a couple of moments ago, back 5, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, simple client-server-based applications, large monolithic code bases, and again, delivery, deployment was an excruciating process. And again, this is where we start to think about how the DevOps movement rose very much organically in response to this. And of course, because of the chronic organizational problems between, siloing your ops people, siloing your application developers. So we start down here on the left. We move over here to kind of the rise, the proliferation of web apps, web application technology, mobile application technology as well. And so now we start to see the delivery cadence pick up. Now we've got maybe a quarterly release, for example. There's still a lot of manual processes in place, but we've mitigated a lot of the pain, the excruciating pain associated with deployments. And then fast forward to the right here, to the rise of truly service-oriented architectures, service mesh technology, Kubernetes, Helm, et cetera. And so now for some companies, a lot of companies, in fact, not even necessarily technology companies, they have the ability to deploy on demand. They're pushing updates to their applications multiple times a day, and the entire process from commit to deploy is automated. And this includes everything like automated testing, security checks. That's where technologies like Prisma Cloud come in, et cetera. I like this visualization as well. This is a nice representation of where CircleCI sits in the toolchain, what bucket we fall in. And I personally think this is a really exciting place to be, very comfortably in between source material over here on the left and some kind of runtime environment over here on the right. Whatever runtime environment that is, it could be a cell phone, it could be bare metal infrastructure, it could be some EC2 instances running on AWS. CircleCI, we sit very comfortably at the orchestration layer, and I think that's a really exciting place to be. I'm very much interested in the problem set associated with testing software, deploying software, as you can tell. I could talk for days about CircleCI and kind of the benefits to our platform. What I want to leave you with here with this slide, and all of us know as technology professionals, there's a lot of variables that go into building, testing, compiling software. Our platform, CircleCI, offers a number of what I like to call build optimization features. These are very powerful features available right out of the box. Things like test splitting and parallelization, Docker layer caching, being able to run your jobs, your builds on different size resource classes, first class dependency caching, things like this, all of this available right out of the box, batteries included. Things like this are what empower developers to ship quality code quicker, more reliably. Again, there's a lot of variables that go into, when you start to think about things like build time and whatnot. I do think it's safe to say CircleCI is the fastest CI platform on the market because a lot of those features I mentioned. Okay, let's talk about Orbs for a second. So historically, every CircleCI project, so we're big practitioners, big proponents of configuration as code. All of your project-specific configuration is going to be stored in the declarative YAML file. And you get all of the same benefits as you would to storing your source materials in version control. There's so many benefits to having code-based configuration. Think infrastructure as code, for example. Historically, every project had to have its own configuration file. And because of our very strong integration at the VCS level, our notion of a project generally is a one-to-one mapping with a Git repository. And so if you're onboarding 10, 15 projects, not the end of the world. If you're onboarding a couple dozen projects, maybe you're in a large organization with hundreds of projects, the notion of writing a configuration file from scratch can become very onerous. And to say nothing of the fact, all of us are familiar with the paradigm dry, don't repeat yourself. It's likely that most of those projects are going to share common paradigms, common idioms, common steps. For example, if you're writing config files for a service-oriented architecture, it's likely most of those services are going to follow the same deployment paradigm. And so Orbs, possibly one of the coolest features we've shipped in the past year or so, enable shareable templatized packages of CircleCI configuration. You could very much think of Orbs as a package manager for CircleCI configuration. And so the benefits for this speak for themselves, right? Being able to dry up your code, making things more deterministic, being able to share and import bits and pieces of configuration from various projects, all highly beneficial. Where things really get interesting, though, is the ability to take an orb, for example, templatize your configuration needed to associate with a tool like Prisma Cloud, Slack. Maybe you want to pull in the AWS CLI. There's any number of things that you could do with orbs. This has opened up a really exciting organic ecosystem of third-party tools and services that you can now incorporate into your CI/CD pipeline in the form of orbs. This is another cool visualization. Here we get a nice representation of our simple declarative YAML-based syntax. What you can do with orbs is you can templatize commands, you can templatize executors, you can templatize job declarations, and you can share all of these templates across however many projects you have in your organization, as well as being able to pull in really awesome technologies and third-party tools and services. And I think, Pradnesh, this is where I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chris, for a great overview of the CircleCI and also the orb structure that we have. If I can start sharing, I think that will help me sort of drive the deck.
Yeah, I'll let you drive. And folks, for everybody watching, again, quick reminder, we've got a dedicated 10-15 minutes at the end for Q&A, so don't hesitate to ask any questions. Myself, Pradnesh, we're happy to answer.
Okay, so for the next part of this session, we are going to focus more on security. And in sort of last few minutes, I'll also show the demo of the things I'm talking about so that you can see it in action. So the big thing I want to start with is there are some numbers on the screen right now. For example, 42% of CloudFormation templates are insecure, or 51% of exposed Docker containers have vulnerabilities. So as you can see with the new application modernization that Chris was talking about, cloud, containers, serverless, Kubernetes, all of these stacks are helping us move very fast, right? But at the same time, they're creating a lot of security challenges also. And if you can see at these numbers, by and large, 50% of the things, the new stuff that we are using with cloud and containers, it's not secure at all. If I can sort of draw an analogy, it's like we are driving a car, which is super fast, but there is no seatbelt on, there are no safety bags, and hell, like even with these numbers, I would like to say there is not even a shell around like that usually cars have. So there is a very large possibility that people can crash, and then there won't be any safety sort of to stop it from happening, right? So with these numbers, as you can see, a lot of people are flying blind here. There are a lot of vulnerabilities that can happen, and there is just a CloudFormation information, but even if you look at formats like Terraform or Kubernetes manifest, Docker containers, the number is here. I'm not sharing the serverless numbers, but same thing for serverless. There are tons and tons of vulnerabilities. There are different things that are happening where the components are not secure. Now to address this problem, there are multiple things people can do. You can either buy point products, which address one of the things, or you can take a holistic approach, identify the components which need more security, and sort of have a platform that can address it. So one important thing that I want to mention is, so it's very, very important to start this security early. There is no point doing security once your container or cloud resource is deployed, because at that point it's already insecure. And by the time you detect it and secure it, there is that window that attacker have in which it can be attacked. And also, after that security issue is detected, you're sort of taking it back again to developer or DevOps team. They fix it and then again remediate your environment. There's a lot of effort wasted in this. So instead of that, in this integrated and comprehensive approach, what I'm recommending is your security controls should be across the whole cycle. Your DevOps lifecycle, in which applications are built, as well as when they get deployed in a production. Doing it on both sides is very important. More important is connecting it. You might detect, say, for example, I'm going to pick on AWS right now, S3 bucket is open, but you need to know as a user of it exactly where that issue originated. So was it in some Terraform template or CloudFormation? And if yes, exactly where that template was, in which repository and which CI/CD pipeline it went through. And to do this, collaboration between DevOps and security teams is very, very important. I daily talk with many customers and potentials, but what I have seen is a lot of different models. Sometimes security teams want to act as police and tell DevOps team what to do. And in sometimes what I have seen is DevOps teams completely ignore security teams. So ideally, there is also some challenges beyond just technology that organizations need to solve, where DevOps and security teams need to work with each other and respect each other. So security is also important, but it shouldn't throttle down the speed at which applications get delivered. So that's very, very important. And then the last point, change is the only constant. In last few years, we have seen clouds, containers, Kubernetes, Istio, and those things are coming on board. And this is just going to keep happening. The speed is so tremendous that in 2 years, 1 year down the line, we are going to see more and more things. So it's very important to get prepared for the things already out there right now, so that we'll be in a better position to protect the things that will be there in the future. Otherwise, we'll be just laggard, catching up on the things, and we will be way behind. And then we see a lot of companies in the news that, hey, this got hacked, the customer info got leaked, or somebody put cloud keys somewhere, S3 buckets. There's no shortage of those news.
Pradnesh, that's an excellent point. Not to cut you off, I just wanted to say a huge anti-pattern that I've seen is when developers, when companies view security as a bottleneck, as something that impedes velocity in application delivery, rather than viewing security as a critical enabler.
Yep. It's essentially your security safety mechanism that you have to do. Otherwise, you get into big troubles later. So how we are approaching this as Palo Alto Networks? If you care about security, you must have heard of Palo Alto Networks. We are world's leading cybersecurity company. 95 of Fortune 100 companies use us. There's some revenue numbers, and if I start putting logos, you can see 75,000 customers. So there are too many customers we have to fit logos on the site. And we are just trying to do the best for the community and in the industry, build more and more advanced security solutions, which will address these challenges we are seeing across the board. Palo Alto Networks does bunch of stuff, like their firewall, there is our AI solutions around Cortex, but specifically the team that I'm part of, and in this session we are going to focus on, is a cloud and container security. So the product that Palo Alto Network builds for this is Prisma Cloud. It came in through the couple of acquisitions, some organic development also in-house through our R&D development teams. You must have seen news around acquisitions of Twistlock, which was arguably #1 in container security and serverless security. And then we did the acquisition of Redlock, Evident for cloud security as well. And what we are trying to do is bringing in all these acquisitions plus organic development, sort of turn Prisma Cloud into a platform that can secure you across the board for all of the new components that are coming in that I talked about. You might be thinking, hey, it's great, Prisma Cloud, awesome, but we don't have Prisma Cloud today. So what do we do? So with Prisma Cloud, we offer 1 month full feature trial as well. So if what I'm going to tell you what we do, if that piques your interest, try out our trial. You can just search a Prisma Cloud trial. The trial is available on our marketplace. If you try to set it up, it takes like 15 minutes to sign up. Just give your email. It's a SaaS solution and you can get started right away. At a broader level, I'm going to focus the session on shift left security, but just want to touch on a lot of different things that Prisma Cloud does. It does visibility compliance and governance for all of your cloud resources. So things like S3 bucket open or RDS database not encrypted. I'm just picking on AWS. Let me say something about Azure also. Azure security groups not configured in the right way. Same thing for Google. We can detect that very, very quickly. We also have some other components like DLP. So we can look at the data that you are storing in your storage bucket. And if there is any malware, if there are any sensitive data there, like HIPAA data, passwords, stuff like that, we can detect it. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is cloud workload protection. It's all about containers, hosts, detecting those vulnerabilities. We can look into your machines that are deployed, the containers you are deploying, whether it's images or actual running containers, your serverless functions across the cloud. And we can tell you if there are any vulnerabilities that are present there. Some of the other areas, you see less number of blocks here because we are always expanding and making investments. Identity-based microsegmentation. Microsegmentation is super, super important, but a lot of vendors that are in the market today have taken approach of very static approach of doing microsegmentation. But if you look at containers, cloud, a lot of these are ephemeral resources. And if you try to do microsegmentation based on static things, you will keep changing rules and stuff all day long. So with the identity base, there are specific signatures we look for, and based on that, we do microsegmentation. And the last, but not the least piece, IAM security. Cloud is all about roles, policies. At least I find it very complex environment. A lot of other people do too. And configuring it in the right way, it's very, very challenging. What we do here, like in case if you make a mistake, if it's overly permissive, some permissions are more than people need, or if there are some policies which shouldn't be there, our IAM security module, it's just like intelligent module that's part of the platform that will skim through your entire environment and will detect where the issues are and will tell you that, hey, these permissions haven't been configured in the right way. So a bunch of stuff that Prisma Cloud does. I'm going to focus more on just the shift left security part of the Prisma Cloud in the interest of time today. So when it comes to shift left security, I talked about how important it is to do it early, because that whole round trip going into production and then coming that security issue back, you can avoid that, as well as that security issue being present in your environment for some time. You can also skip that if you can identify that security issue early in your app lifecycle. So what we do, number one, container image and serverless function scans. We can scan container images, also host images. So something like AMIs, your machine images on Azure, we can scan that and tell you vulnerabilities in those images. Serverless functions, we can also scan and detect vulnerabilities. And all of it, there are policies, RBAC, alerting, notification, all that's built in as part of the platform. So if you want to get notified on Slack, or if you want to send an email to additional security team, all of that can be done. The second part is infrastructure as a core security. I showed you some numbers in the beginning, how insecure the bunch of CloudFormation templates are. Terraform is not way different. So what we can do there is we can identify security issues in infrastructure as a code, Terraform, CloudFormation, Kubernetes manifest. Today, we don't have support for Azure Resource Management, ARM templates, Azure Resource Manager templates. But we are also looking at how we can add support for more and more templates there as well. And then the third big part is Git repo vulnerability management. When people build these application packages, there are a number of times dependencies on open source packages and libraries. Nobody can build a new application without using libraries and other packages. We can detect vulnerabilities in all those dependencies as well. It's very, very important. You might build very secure code in-house, but the libraries you are referencing or other open source packages you are using, they might have tons of vulnerabilities. So we can also detect that. Today, what we do is you can onboard GitHub repos and check there, and we are planning to expand it furthermore. Now the next part, what I'm going to do is, let me skip over this, is go a little bit deeper into each area and give you details on some of these functionalities. So image and function scan, as you can see in the product, when the scans happen, we can show the details there, like what exactly CV is mapped there, the description, and exactly which package it is coming from. It's very, very important. So for example, you detect 10 vulnerabilities in this container image. will actually give you layered information that exactly in which layer of that container image that vulnerability got introduced. So you can go back and fix up that particular layer and make your container image more secure. We can scan public or private AWS AMIs today, just for AWS today. And we can also allow the users to enforce pass or fail status with a centralized policy management. So if you say, okay, I want to flag only for high and critical severity vulnerabilities, there is a way in the product, you'll be able to do that. And all of these results, all of this scanning, so just going a little bit back, can happen in multiple stages of DevOps lifecycle. So to go a little bit more deeper there, think of simple application, like even jumping into the bunch of components on the slide, how the development happens. You know, your developers come in, they write some code, right? They write some code in their IDEs and maybe directly in terminal. That code gets stored in some sort of repository. If they build a container image, that gets stored in some sort of registry, and then you run CI/CD pipelines against that. With this whole shift left functionality that we have in the product, rather than asking DevOps teams to go to a security tool, which they don't need another tool. What we are doing is actually taking security to the tools they use more heavily. So how we have done that is by building plugins for different tools they use more heavily. So for IDEs like VS Code, IntelliJ, for repositories like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, we have plugins, as well as for different CI/CD tools. And specifically with CircleCI, we are working jointly. And then recently we have developed a CircleCI Orb that you can put in your CircleCI instance and configure it so that the security checking sort of becomes part of your CI and CD pipelines as well. So now on that front, okay, this is all great. It's all integrated into DevOps pipeline. Scanning is happening. Your DevOps teams can go in there and see the results. But if you look at it from the other stakeholder, who is also very important, the security team, are they going to go to individual tool, individual project and see the results? You know, if they start doing that, the entire day or maybe more time they need to just keep doing that. So what we have done, and this is the last point I was referencing on the slide, scan results available in Prisma Cloud. All of the scanning that's happening in different areas, it will be aggregated and it will be surfaced in the Prisma Cloud as well. So for security, all the results are there with the correct filters. If you want to quickly check the status of things that are going in production, you can apply filters, see it. If you want to figure out some key flaws, for example, somebody merged in a GitHub a PR with security issues, you can apply a filter and quickly those high sort of risk items will bubble up in this table so that you can pay attention to those items quickly and move on. And maybe when you have more time, can go more granular. So things like that we are doing to make even the life of security professional more easier so that they don't have to look at each and every result. And as I mentioned earlier, there are notifications, there are alerts in the product. So if you want to, if you don't want to do this in our UI itself, but if you want to do it in, say, get alerted on Slack or have your own sort of Uber dashboard where the results from different tools are coming in, there are, we have API, there are abilities where you can dump all the data out of the product and just pull over in your dashboard as well. The next part, ISC security. So the model stays, you know, even for ISC security, we have DevOps plugins. We have UI in the product where security teams can see the results. As you can see, there's some trend charts and stuff I put on the slide. You can apply a filter and say for this particular project, where exactly the scanning is happening? Is it happening in IDEs? Is it happening in Git repositories? How about CI/CD? And also how my issues are trending, timeline-wise, stages-wise, all of that information you can get in these charts. You just have to apply the right filters. When we scan these Terraform CloudFormation templates or Kubernetes app manifest, I have heard it from some users. We don't store any of your templates. Some people think that's a strong IP. Very reasonable. We don't store any of the templates. As soon as the scan is done, those templates get deleted from our system. We just store the metadata. So, for example, template name, what kind of security issues we detected, etc. We scan against the policy set here, and there are a bunch of CI standards we cover for different clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP. All three major clouds are covered. And there are like more than 100 plus policies that are available out of the box. So right on the first day, you don't have to do anything, just push your templates. We'll do a scan against the default policies. And even in that, I have seen many customers discover so many issues. And for more advanced customers, we also offer a functionality where they can write their custom policies as well. The last part, this functionality, I talked about the plugins, but also available through API and CLI. So if you want to do your own things, want to customize something when there is an integration happening with the tool, you can use direct API as well. The third big piece that we offer in Shift Left Security, Git vulnerability, repo vulnerability management. On the right-hand side, you can see a product UI screen. You onboard your Git repositories. For each package in that repository, will show you vulnerabilities, what kind of vulnerabilities are present. And this is not a product UI, this is just a slide, but you can click on these different components more, like what kind of vulnerabilities, do the filtering, and get more information as well. So if they get alerted, etc. We do full repo scans at regular time intervals, again, user's choice. And we can also do scans during the commit process. So actually the repository changes, some new code comes in. Even during the commit process, we have hooks and we'll do the scan. And if something is not right, that will get highlighted. We have support for major Git features. For example, if you're using Git submodules and stuff, we have support for that as well. So now jumping into our partnership with CircleCI, we have developed a certified CircleCI ARP. That means it has gone through testing standards that CircleCI team has established, as well as some other standards, so that it's a sort of a certified that CircleCI stands behind their certified ARPs. The link I'm including on the slide as well. Which can do two things. It can do ISC security that we looked at, as well as it can do image and function scans. The second part is the scan results from this CircleCI ARP, like as I showed you for other components, will be available in Prisma Cloud UI also. Okay, so just a second, I'll be back. Sorry, just my dog bothering me. And we have also released the CircleCI ARB on a GitHub repository. So when you use it, if there are any issues you surface, if there are any suggestions you have about the ARB, you can also file issues in that GitHub repository. And as you can see, we are live here in a joint customer webinar. We are also planning to do a blog post about this to cover some of the high level features in the ARP that are going in. All right, now it's a demo time. So let's spend a few next minutes on the demo. What I'm going to show you in the demo is that whole sort of, probably I won't be able to do it as complex as a real-time application, but go from right from your IDE, go from VS Code, I'll update a Terraform template, push it in GitHub, do the IC scan in both phases, show you CircleCI ARM that we have developed together. And then in the CircleCI ARM, I'll show you the different types of scans that are happening. For the Prisma Cloud Asset Inventory UI, if the time permits, I'll quickly show you some glimpses of Prisma Cloud UI as well. Okay. So let's go to the demo. All right, so this is my Visual Studio Code. The plugins I'm talking about For all of the different tools, these plugins are hosted on the respective tools marketplace. So for CircleCI Visual Studio Code, as you know, you just go in preferences, extensions, search for Prisma Cloud. Our extension is there. You can install it, takes few seconds. Once you install it, we ask for few settings, which is like your API URL, your access key, secret key. If you're not a Prisma Cloud customer today, but interested in the functionality, you can start that trial. Generating access key secret key takes another couple of minutes, and then you can put it here and then get the scanning started. Now, here, what I have is I have this for expression Terraform module. There are a bunch of Terraform files under that module. What it does is it creates AWS EC2 instance, VPC, and it also creates a couple of S3 buckets mapped to it. So I'm just going to show you quickly S3 bucket file. And there are a few issues here. If you can spot those, for example, that versioning is not enabled, and even ACL is public read, right? So if I deploy this, most probably I'll create an S3 bucket depending on where the network is connected, which will have public access. So in VS Code, once the plugin is installed, the process to scan this is super simple. You just right click on a module and you will get that Prisma scan option. Hit Prisma scan and the scan will start. We'll take the files, send it to the backend and get it scanned and send the results in VS Code. The new pane gets created and then the results will show up here. So these are the results you see here are from the previous scan. I did it as one sample run, but you can see here the progress bar. The scan is happening. Once, so the scan just finished, 10:44 this time. It discovered AWS S3 bucket accessible to public. AWS S3 object versioning is disabled. So developers can detect their issues right in their IDE. If for some reason there is no gating in IDE, if they decide to take this code without fixing, if they try to push it in GitHub, we will sort of detect it there as well as we will create a gate. So now let's switch over to my GitHub. Okay, it's trying to create a new tab. So this is a repository I have of few Terraform templates. This is the same module that I showed you earlier, same files. What I'm going to do now is sort of trigger a PR, bit artificially. I'll just do it in UI. It's going to add a new line or take out a line or something to trigger a PR. Even for GitHub, we have, so I'm opening up this marketplace link. For every tool, we have put sort of, oops, I think I searched it in the wrong place. Okay. For every tool, we have hosted the plugins on the respective marketplace wherever possible. So you can see our Prisma Cloud app for GitHub. You get it installed. It's a little bit weird. You have to go here and install it for free. All of the plugins are available for free. In here, going back, triggering the PR, made a change, just a new branch, and I'll start a pull request. So once the app is installed, in every PR creation, there is a Prisma Cloud ISE scan that happens for repositories for which you have it enabled. You can choose which repositories to enable it for, or you can just enable it for all repositories. It takes few seconds for this scan to happen. And as you can see, I have also hooked up my CircleCI instance to this particular GitHub repository. So whenever I make a change, automatically my CircleCI pipeline gets triggered, and there are a couple of tasks there. So you can see Prisma Cloud IC scan got triggered, vulnerabilities found one. Let's take a look at that. So it detected AWS S3 buckets are accessible to public. So probably somebody disabled it. Let me just show you one of the pull requests. I did it in a sample run, so about 3 hours ago. So you can see same issues, AWS 3 buckets are accessible to public, that issue, as well as this is just an example of a custom policy also you can do. We have a cloned same policy. So if this different policy, custom policy also gets triggered, it also shows up in that entire workflow. The description is empty because when the default policy was cloned, the person didn't put the description. That's why the description is empty, but if you go in the product, put the description, it shows up here as well. So in the PR, then you can create a check. You can even disable the merge pull request button if the vulnerabilities detected are higher than whatever the threshold that you want to set. In addition to that, the app itself has a functionality to create a security issue against a person who is trying to merge the code. So as you can see, I tried to merge that code. One issue was detected and the bot automatically created a security issue also against me. So if you're a developer, DevOps person tries to push some unsecure code, this will act as a gate in the repository itself directly. Okay. Say for whatever reason, maybe the app was down and the changes were merged in. We can also check in CI/CD pipelines. I'm going to show you specifically in CircleCI with CircleCI Orb. And in those pipelines, the pipeline will fail depending on how it's configured. If you want to run it in a warn mode, you can even run it in sort of a warning mode if you want to initially. So let me quickly show you my CircleCI config. Oops. Okay. So here I have 3 tasks. One is in here, Docker build and save. I'm pulling latest Nginx image for scanning. The second is scan ISE. So as you can see, it has details around, okay, what should be my failure threshold? And if there are some tags and stuff that I want to attach to that. And then the second part is scanning that Nginx image that I'm pulling in, which is again, you need a URL. You need to start that trial if you're not already a customer, and then specify exactly which image to scan.
Radnesh, it looks like you're using build parameters to denote what kind of severity levels to check for.
Yes, yes, that's right. So it sort of gives those parameters as an input to those jobs. And then once those inputs are provided, then they know what to do. If you want to run it in a warning mode, you just specify different numbers. It will just show up there, but won't show the pipeline depending on how you want to do it. So now switching over to CircleCI, let me log in into my CircleCI instance. So those tasks are getting triggered continuously. You can see this particular thing has failed because I didn't really merge the PR. So that's why those security issues are still present. There are 2 scan stages. One is scan ISE and scan image. If I click here, scan ISE, that one issue that was present was detected for expression. And the scan has failed because security issues counts, it sort of meets or exceeds the failure criteria. If it's lower than that, it would just pass and then allow people to proceed. And there are a lot of granularity you can do with the failure criteria. In addition to that, we also give a CSV or the scan results. So if you want to use it somewhere else, there is a CSV which just gives a simple table with the policy violation, severity, description, etc. Let me see if I can open this. So right now there is just one issue. That's why it's showing up just one liner. But if there are multiple issues, then it would show up multiple issues, of course. And then the second step for the scan, let me go back, is scan image. So we just scan the latest Nginx image. And depending on the flags, like latest Nginx image has a bunch of vulnerabilities which haven't been fixed, like there are no fixes available. So some of those things show up here, but you can configure it in any way. For example, if you don't want to trigger for vulnerabilities for which no fix is available, because anyways developer can't go back and add some fix, you can disable counting of those vulnerabilities, etc. And in these results, we show vulnerabilities, we show compliance issues, and all of those results are available in the pipeline. So your developers can go more deeper and check what's happening there. In addition to that, all of our policies are documented. So if your developers don't have direct access to the Prisma Cloud product when you use it, you can just give them this web link. All of the policies are documented. And for each policy, I'll show you the policy that was triggered.
Well, this is super handy.
Yeah, for each policy, then you can see the details, okay, what the rule we use to check for that policy. And then we will also show you, okay, for this policy, how to fix this. Because finding the issue is one thing, but if you can't fix it quickly, that's going to bite into your app development velocity. So they can come in here, see how to fix it for CloudFormation and Terraform, and update their template and get the issue fixed. So that's also helping them moving in the right direction. So, so that's the whole workflow I showed you, going from IDE to Git repository to ultimately CI/CD. I showed you the brand new CircleCI Orb that we have developed. All of these plugins, everything, it's supported, everything that I have shown you. And always we're working on adding more and more policies as new services are being introduced by clouds, new vulnerabilities being discovered in images, Git repositories, etc. We sort of do that work for you. Like we look at the compliance standard, we look at the vulnerability databases and feeds, and improve our database so that you just have to be responsible for scanning these things and addressing those security issues. I'll quickly also show you how it looks in the product. So I think in the interest of time, probably I'll just show you a few things. So these are the policies that are all present in the product also. These can be edited, these can be modified. In addition, you can go in new policies, config, and you can, let me just quickly show you this. Sample, put some severity, put sample for description, and go in here, choose your template type, CloudFormation, Kubernetes Manifest, or Terraform, and you can write rules and everything around that. We have tutorials on how to write custom policies. We have some samples, etc., which will help your teams get started once they are ramped up on this. So with that, I would like to conclude the demo. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And of course, beyond this webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or even LinkedIn, just messages. We'll see if we can answer your questions also there. Okay. So with that, any questions that you have?
Yeah, well, firstly, Pradnesh, thank you very much for both the comprehensive overview as well as the demo itself. I certainly found that valuable. Andrew Nova graciously asked a question. He asked, how much overlap is there between the GitHub application and the IAC Orb job when it comes to scanning something like Terraform configs?
So it's just the scanning that's happening multiple times. So as things go from Git repository to CI/CD, multiple templates, multiple components come together. Usually in Git repository, it's a single thing that people are checking in and stuff, versus CI/CD, multiple components are coming together. So the level of scanning is different. For example, in terms of Terraform in Git repository, one single module might get scanned, versus in your CD, bunch of modules which have dependencies and stuff, all of that thing will get scanned. So it's important to do it at multiple stages and detect the issues that come with the complexity as well.
Well, thanks for asking that, Andrew. We've got a couple minutes left. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, musings?
Yeah, you can type up any questions in the chat window. Another question, any plans for Ruby language on the GitHub application? So on this webinar, I'm being recorded as a PM. So I cannot go into details of the roadmap, but I will just say we are looking at most of the popular languages that people use. And there are plans to support all of popular languages that we see being used heavily in the industry today.
Yeah, great question, Andrew. Also, for what it's worth, correct me if I'm wrong, Pradnesh. It's my understanding GitHub at this point in time has some fairly lightweight dependency scanning functionality. So you've got a Ruby project, you've got a bunch of source material on GitHub. It's my understanding that they'll automatically scan through that and see if nothing else, if you have any like out-of-date modules or dependencies or things that might have a CVE associated with them. I don't think it nearly comes close to the level of depth or breadth that something like Prisma Cloud might have, but at least at a high level, it'll let you know if you're using an out-of-date package or what's the term of art with Ruby? Gem?
Yes.
Okay.
So the scans, actually doing scans, yes, like GitHub, there are some other tools in the industry that also offer this. But when it comes to security, it's not just important to focus on the scan itself, but it's also important to focus on what's the engine behind it. And by engine, I mean how solid the vulnerability database is. So otherwise, for a same template, same image, same package, you would do a scan. One tool will show you two vulnerabilities, whereas the same more comprehensive tool will show you 6 or 7 vulnerabilities. That's why it's very important to choose the tool that's right for your needs, which is identifying all the vulnerabilities that you need that tool to identify.
Yeah, great point. Andrew asked another question. Pradnesh, would love to hear your thoughts on this. I can share a couple of thoughts from my perspective. As for the Docker containers used for running the CI/CD steps in Circle, can you scan those without creating self-referential jobs? I.e., I've got jobs that use MySQL, Elasticsearch, Redis, etc. Is there an easy way to include checks on those images? One thing that comes to mind is, so CircleCI, we maintain a number of what we call convenience images, which are popular, languages and frameworks that we package together and we maintain as a platform. But you're by no means forced to use our convenience images. In fact, I highly recommend best practices is building your own custom Docker image and using that as your primary executor moving forward. It might be slightly onerous, but I would consider, obviously, depending on the use case for some of those Docker images, potentially putting together some kind of out-of-band service that would check those images for vulnerabilities every time you propagate those.
Thanks, Chris. So one more thing that you can do with the Orb I shared with you is, I didn't show it in the demo, but you can actually use regular expressions and wildcards when you are giving us image specification. So if you have a bunch of different images and you don't want to create separate jobs for each or specify those names, you can use wildcards and regular expressions as well. So in one go, the multiple images will get scanned in your pipeline. Or if you put something like star.star, all of the images in your pipeline get scanned irrespective of the image name and stuff.
Well, there you go. All right, folks, I think we're at time. I want to thank all of our guests for joining. I hope you found this webinar valuable. And a big shout out to Pradnesh for giving us a great Prisma Cloud overview and for an awesome demo.
Thanks, Chris. Likewise, thanks for that CircleCI overview and coverage as well of the Orb. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and looking forward to collaborating with you on that blog.
Of course.
All right, everybody, take care.
Bye.
Bye.